Good morning. So I did an update yesterday and I wasn't going to do one for the next couple of days, but I thought I'd do an emergency update since everyone's gone into panic mode about the massive drop yesterday. And I say massive, but really, let's be honest, in the bigger picture it's not massive. I did comment in yesterday's video that the problem when you have so many zones, I'll just take out this weekly, when you have so many possibilities of where things might bounce, what can happen is you can run all the way through them. So it's very much happened on Bitcoin. Well, we had the monthly, let me show you the bigger picture, the monthly alert at the top. The alerts are all still there because I haven't refreshed this page. The monthly alert on the top of this brown, we got a bit of a bounce off there, but didn't get very far, and then came down into the daily and then all the way into that hourly at the bottom that I previously talked about, saying it could retrace the whole move. Ether, much worse. And Ether, even in yesterday's video, excuse me, that's not Ether, I commented that this monthly demand that we had, I have to show you on the other charts, I think I've deleted it off here, but we had this monthly in the middle, which I had alerted, and that's why I've got 2 arrows there, and I sort of said we'll just see what happens when we get there. But yeah, not surprisingly, we've come all the way back through that, but I'll talk about the structure of that in a minute. So yeah, Bitcoin still in range. So we had this monthly demand, we came down deeper inside it. I've removed all my previous entries so we can actually see what we're doing here. As I said, this daily is kind of my last hurrah point of don't want to break that down, because then we can get a much bigger drop down to the 70s. And even then, and again here, as I've said before, there's been so many possible entries, 4 hours, a couple of 4 hours there, and a point of control and a fib, and 12 hour here, and then we get into the higher time frame, 3 month zones, etc. down there. But for now, while we have the risk that we're going to reject here because we're off this fib confluence area, which again I talked about in the video yesterday, we are still holding the range and we do still have this monthly demand, and we can take a wick through this monthly demand, and that would be, it's a week monthly, as I said yesterday. We could take a wick through it, that is a possibility, and still have it be okay, because it's weak. But yeah, I don't really want to be seeing daily closes below this daily zone that's bounding the bottom of it. But I was thinking back to this consolidation we had previously, which was a very extended consolidation. It wouldn't surprise me if we do similar again. That again, even here, so we came down and we dropped through this weekly into the daily there. So that's kind of why I was potentially looking at the higher zones in the middle of this pump, because sometimes we can kind of stop mid-pump and not retrace the whole thing. But we just need to assess zones as and when they hit. And I did actually want to do a video today on how to enter in the zones, which I'm not sure I'm going to get to now, because obviously we've had so much drama since last night. But I thought I'd do this morning, and then potentially this afternoon have to go to the gym, and then potentially this afternoon I have a look at that. I haven't done any of these, so I've kind of updated my charts in that I've deleted zones and things like that, and I've added on some of them, you know, the new, in this case, 3-day and 2-day supply above. The 2-day we already had that rejection, which forced this move. There's a new 3-day, but I haven't looked yet at where to put new entries. I did actually, I've got an alert up here, there's an 8-hour supply in here that I did have alerted for hopefully getting a retest before this drop, but did not get that on Bitcoin. But then obviously we had the short, taking out those highs, that more aggressive short from before. But yeah, anyway, so it's, you know, while it feels dramatic, it's not overly dramatic. It might become dramatic, and part of the reason for this is the dollar. So obviously all the tariff and trade wars news that we're getting had the dollar gap up massively this morning, which again we pretty much expected. And this could retrace here and fill up the gap, so I guess we'll see, or it could just push further. So the problem is with Monday retracement, you know, it's an unusual situation, so it's hard to judge what it might do, but like often if we get this, then we'll get Tuesday, Wednesday will continue, and then Wednesday, Thursday might drop it. So I'm not sure if we're going to come back down here today or not yet, and again I haven't looked at the detail. Similarly, the indices, S&P, all the indices gapped down, but again they're gapping down just into demand, so it's not necessarily a dramatic the world's going to end scenario yet, because we haven't actually, so we've got some daily down structure, but we haven't actually broken major structure. Similarly on NASDAQ, and you know, they've got plenty of distance they can fall and still find support. We've also got, I think, some earnings coming up this week, maybe Apple or some of the Magnificent Seven, are they called, to see see what earnings and how earnings are going to affect this. So we could have just some general volatility this week, and obviously Bitcoin is very much following what TradFi is doing at the moment. So but yeah, like I say, I need to look at all these things a little bit more. So all I've done so far is really just hide things from the charts. Hold on, let's go back to Bitcoin again quickly. So other couple of things on Bitcoin. So obviously CME, we've left a big gap above, so there's a fair chance we're going to go and fill that. Whether we then reject in that zone, we'll have to see. But yeah, I mean, I certainly will be looking for shorts up there on the off chance. Bitcoin Korea, that was the other thing, my concern actually I did have when this was falling yesterday and when it had hit my first few alerts, is that Korea was still up here, and Korea like caught up quite late on this last, so it was the post midnight candle, whereas the US dollar pair had done a lot of the drop before midnight. I think pre-midnight Korea was still holding this zone, but this has now come back into the 2-week demand, so that's good. This didn't make a monthly, but again, still holding. It's not the strongest structure because of the again, the swing fail on the weekly of the highs, and we've also got a 3 hits to the high scenario. And I guess the real thing here is you know, Korea is so much, or Bitcoin Korea is so much stronger than Bitcoin US dollar because of the dollar. It's already had this big wick down here, but I wonder, you know, if this does come back down to a similar structural level as the US dollar pair, then obviously the US dollar pair can potentially break a lot lower. So that'll be another interesting thing to watch. Then I'll get to others in a sec. Let's just look at the US dollar dominance first. So US dollar dominance obviously has taken a huge push out of this range finally, but again, on the 12-hour, it's still going to look like a swing failure. It's come through the trend line. It's taken stops here. You can see I had this little trend line here from ages ago, and it's just short of hitting the 2-month supply there that we've got. So maybe we'll get a little bit more of a push. But also this is now potentially, I did want it lower, but it doesn't necessarily mean, I think this could mean now that it's a reversal. But while Bitcoin's still in that monthly demand, we still need to see, you know, is this going to come down and test the 3-day, 2-day demand in here and then continue? Or if, you know, the Bitcoin monthly demand plays out, then this should go back through. But with this new demand, it now might mean it takes some time. It also did create, I think, so we did get, you can see here, like a 2-week close just above the 2-week candle there for a 2-week demand, and the weekly demand. Again, it's messy, so they're not ideal zones. I think I drew the levels in, but didn't actually do the colors. So let's just add that weekly in there. But yeah, because it's a bit of a black swan kind of event, I do just want to see a bit of follow-up price action. I mean, the real risk on this, I guess, for the crypto market is, you know, that's made a double bottom. It's taken stops from here and from here, and this is now going to continue back up into the 3-month supply up here. I'm dread to think what will happen to alts if that happens. Yeah, for now we're just looking at that retracement down into here to see if we can make the higher low, because so far it's not made it clear. We need a clear hold up here for some period of time and then a clear higher low. And let's look at the 2-day, 3-day. So yeah, it's the double bottom, and then yeah, we've got a potential breakout, but still possible swing failure on the 12-hour and the daily. And then we need to see the test back down here. So at least that should give a bounce to the market while that happens. BTC dominance, obviously a huge wick on that, and okay, so that's exactly come up into my 6-month level. So, you know, maybe people who are favouring alts, let me just delete some of these zones so you can see. People who are favouring bounces on the alts, I mean, alts, if they're going to bounce, really are very much overdue. Because, yeah, I mean, I'll go through them in a moment, but yeah, they've significantly broken down. So yeah, BTC dominance at 6 month supply there. So yeah, as is normal, I would expect a decent retracement here. It could still go higher in the zone, so don't forget that. I was looking at the 3-day here for a possible rejection locally, but we didn't get that. But yeah, that's very interesting. Kind of looking sort of blow off toppy, but it can still come back down and find support here, so I guess we still need to see follow-up PA, but yeah, be aware that BTC dominance is in 6 month supply now, so that can either mean the whole market's going to die, or it means, and i.e. money flows into US dollar dominance, which is possible as what you've just seen, or money is going to flow back into the alt market. Ether dominance come back down into 2 month demand here, so we did run through a 3 month zone there, but again, like, so Ether dominance now again is at a point it might see a reversal, but again, there's so much chop here. Ether dominance has been hard, you know, we expected a reversal from somewhere in this area, but didn't get it. But again, now at a point we might see a move up on Ether dominance and others dominance the same. So again, so this structure I've compared many times to the alts charts in the previous videos if you've watched. You know, my concern on a lot of these alt charts is that we had a monthly demand here and that we'd go through it because it was a weak one having made a lower high, and that's what we've now seen on a lot of alts. And we're coming down, a lot of alts also look like this with this sort of potential double bottom scenario, a lot of the majors anyway. So again, at a point we could see a possible reversal on this. Still quite tentative, you know. I like the fact obviously that we're on an annual demand on this chart, but again, you know, with this rejection, are we now going to come deeper into the 6 month and down here somewhere? It's possible, and obviously got that break of trend as well, so it's kind of not ideal. Total DeFi dominance, another one that we, as expected, has gone through, and this one had actually made an annual supply, so again, I've talked about that in previous videos, that we made an annual. I think it didn't test it this month though, no. So we made an annual supply here, but it had already tested it on the December candle on that month, and has dropped off. But that was, yeah, making me very nervous for the market as a whole. But again, back at support, so there is, you know, it's a possibility either way at the moment, you know, that others dominance and total DeFi dominance could get a bit of a bounce here, or is the money going to flow into US dollar dominance? It's also possible. I think I did look at the other US dollar dominance charts were looking slightly stronger than the just tether one, so the USDC, which is probably now a lot more worth watching, thinking about it, because of the what is it, the MiCA rules in Europe. US tether is potentially going to become less used, and I think a lot more pairs are being developed in USDC now, so it might be a little more worth watching the USDC chart. The structures are very similar, but there are slight differences. And for example, this 6 month level, I think the US dollar tether is quite close to that 6 month. Yeah, which is where I wanted that entry. Let's get rid of that. So the US dollar dominance is quite close to there, whereas the USDC one is somewhat further away. That's something I need to think about anyway. Quick look at the totals charts. So again, I did look at these yesterday. Oh, that's not great. So this total has gone straight back through monthly demand here, and also had a weekly. So this was the monthly zone. I'll show you on the monthly chart. So that's the monthly zone. Again, this is what can happen when you have a weak monthly, and this is even weaker than BTC because it didn't even break. At least BTC, while its swing failed, it did break this wick, whereas total hasn't. So yeah, that's come back through the monthly there into daily, and probably dragged down a little bit by some of the bigger alts, which have had such significant drops, and obviously still has a gap here to the 3 month, but could still hold, you know, it's still holding same structure as Bitcoin, it's still holding that daily that daily zone at the bottom, holding up that whole consolidation. So it's not doom and gloom yet. Total 2, I can see it's got a bigger percentage drop. Again, not surprisingly, this has had a much bigger drop because of Ether taking that huge wick down. So this has come all the way back down into the 2-month demand down there. But again, while it's a big drop, not doom and gloom, it hasn't actually broken any demand here. But as I've said before, like the real risks that I had, the real concerns that I had, you know, the fact that we haven't managed to make a higher high. But until we see demand break, that's not necessarily a valid. So while it looks like this could be a double top, you know, and then have that bigger move back down there, it could still, you know, we are still trying to figure out what's going on here, so we could still get another move that is going to take out the high here. That's a possibility. But while this has hit the 2-month level, I guess I would have liked that a little bit lower as well. So again, we need to see the close. We need to see if we're going to get a lot of buying coming back in, particularly on Bitcoin today, that's going to prop up the market. You know, now we've had the drop, the ETFs have been still buying huge amounts over the last, you know, and that hasn't changed over the last few weeks. So we need to see if they're going to come back in. I'm just updating this. So this has also come back through a monthly zone. This does have an annual demand, but it's come back through the monthly, the week monthly, and has tapped into the top of the 3-month demand there. So again, it's not doom and gloom until we start to see this break, or until we start to see supply on the higher time frames be created and hold. So we did have that on the weekly and the 2 weekly. Now it's got a new weekly supply in there. So again, it's on the edge of being bad, but it isn't actually that bad yet, I think is probably my conclusion on that. Again, swing fail of the high is not ideal. And the real worry with these things is that, you know, the total 2, total 3 are all still so high, yet the alt market is all down here somewhere. And I've said before that I suspect, you know, I guess that the total 3 and others are being held up by the stronger ones, which are probably the bigger ones like XRP and Sol. So this is struggling now to be indicative of the actual alt market, because we really need, I think, an others minus, like, well, others is not including the top 10, whereas we probably need others not including more than the top 10. Sorry, I just had my doorbell go, so I'm just checking it's being answered. Okay, so others exactly the same. So my concern here was the possibility of a double top, the possibility of a similar structure to over here. And again, we are kind of seeing a bit of that, but I still need to see this demand break, in fact, to have that confirmation. So you can see here, this would have come back into demand, gone back for the retest, and then done the bigger move. So in the same vein here, we've come back into demand. I had that alerted, had that on the chart for a while. It's got 2-week supply above here now, which it rejected. So again, are we going to get a bounce up that's going to reject here, similar to how we had here? Hope you can hear me well enough as well now. My cleaner's hoovering outside the door, so I'll talk a bit louder in case it's being echoing down the stream. Yeah, so again, at a point we can get this bounce, that we're looking for this bounce, alts have already bounced. So like probably the other comment there is don't be FOMOing into alts now. Now we need to see, you know, if you got the lows, then great. I had, I think, 170 alerts go off or something like that, so I'll have a look at that in a minute. But yeah, don't be FOMOing in immediately here. Now we need to look for structure. If you missed the wick, then you need to wait and see. You know, like for example here, you can very clearly see there's about halfway between the support and between daily and up to daily supply, so it's really not worth the risk to reward. If you entered now with your stop below here, the take profit is too close to make this really worthwhile as a trade. But yeah, like I say, it's not all doom and gloom yet, because things are on support. But the major risk is now if BTC dominance has hit that 6-month level, as we just saw, and obviously come down hard off that 6-month level. I'll not just delete that. It's coming down hard off that 6-month level. Is it just going to pick up support and continue? But also, where's the money going to flow? Is the money going to flow? So obviously the money so far has flowed into US dollar dominance, but is it now going to flow back into the alt market? And people have been screaming for alt season for a very long time. I've been sort of saying, no, don't buy resistance. And obviously, yes, we can break out of resistance. So, you know, others is at a point that it could hold here and break upwards. But I have been saying, you know, I wouldn't be longing alts while we were up here. And that's why I was providing short entries throughout the last few weeks. Yeah, so anyway, if we start to see, if we lack strength off this bounce, then I'll start to get a lot more bearish, but I need to see a little bit more on that. Ether, didn't talk about Ether yet. So Ether, I mean, US dollar pair is just horrific compared to the Korea pair. So like it took a huge liquidation, wick down. I think somebody, what was it, a $29 million liquidation on Ether BTC, which is just insane. Like, so I've left the zone in just so we could see it, but you can see it had a 2-week demand here, and then it had the monthly stacked on top of it. And we've had this same structure on a lot of alts, and I've commented many times that, you know, and we had a lot of alts bounce on this zone, to be fair, before dropping. But now a lot of them, I commented many times that we had this trend line stops underneath these zones, and like I say, alts are looking very similar to this, at least at this low, and that a wick through wouldn't surprise me. Now in this case, it's come down just to make near enough a double bottom there. I don't know if it's $3 above taking out the actual low of that consolidation. But again, it's a ranging move, and I actually reminded myself yesterday that this was actually a 2-month supply. So for a long time I was actually bearish here, and I should have continued to be bearish because this is a 2-month supply. I think that wick just took out the high, but then closed as a fairly major swing failure on the 2-month chart. So to expect it to come down and take out these lows was not unreasonable at all. So I think it's still possible in Ether that it does come down and take some more of these lows, and I wanted it. My preferred entry on this would have been that 3-month demand. The other problem though we've got on Ether is that while I've talked about, so I'll show you again this structure here where we made a double top, and this is weak demand because it's been unable to make a higher high, we kind of have the same scenario on the bigger picture. So this, we've made a demand, and so far twice it's now been unable to make a higher high. So the real worry and risk on Ether is that this is going to now, same way as it's just taken out that demand, this is also weak demand. And you know, I know people won't like to hear that, and I think I did do, let me see if I've still got it. Yeah, I did do the bars pattern showing this, that this was a possibility. So this was, I think, taken from, was it from, I think this bars pattern, it was taken from this section, I believe. So the lower time frame, again, it was just saying, again, we had that weak demand here. This is exactly the same. So there's many fractals that are the same on this chart. So again, we had an up move, we made a demand here, had another up move, and then it came back to test this. Actually, the same scenario here, got very close to taking out the lows, but didn't, retested, and then dropped through the whole thing. So I believe that, I'll show the smaller one, and that's the very large one. So that similar structure here is what I was looking at again. You know, it's not perfectly put on the chart there, but you know, it's come down, wick taking out the lows. Is it just going to go up and test here now before the bigger drop? And then again, what I also did just to freak everybody out, because I enjoy doing analysis that freaks people out, because it's always remembering probabilities in the same direction. This is the exact same fractal. But again, are we going to come down, wick to here, and then have a very significant drop, which would then take us back into these untested monthly demands below? And obviously everyone will be very upset with me saying that, but you've got to keep your mind open to the possibilities. And at the moment what we're seeing is, you know, price made a high, price is unable to take out the high. And, you know, here we have price made a high, price is unable to take out the high, it goes back to the next demand. Same here, price made a high, unable to take out the high, so it goes back to the next demand, which should be low, should be lower than the consolidation in the middle, and it's exactly the same on the macro. So anyway, just be aware of that. Let me delete some of these levels. So again, on Ether, I need to look at the supply. I've still got sort of, we're still having this low time frame price action. I still have multiple possible short entries, including the one I just got missed. So we had one slightly lower here and then that one slightly higher. Hi Saket yeah, so I need to see where I'm going to put new short entries in on this. And again, I'll look back at the previous fractal and see what it did here. For example, there it took out the previous weekly high, so we might end up, if we did the same thing, going back up, filling these gaps. Again, Ether, so on the CME chart, obviously again left a huge gap and left a weekly supply up there, so very possible that goes up to fill those gaps. Again, don't FOMO into this immediately, wait for low time frame demand, etc. It's filled a bunch of gaps. I'm going to delete these now. It's filled a whole bunch of gaps that it left all the way back down to this low, and there's still one right by those lows that was left. That might have shifted down a bit actually. Obviously that probably should be slightly higher. Maybe I've shifted them by mistake. Anyway, I'll leave it because it's not necessarily that relevant. And then obviously a possible risk of breaking trend here, macro trend line. And then Ether Korea, which is just, again, incongruous. So this is still, so whereas the US dollar pair has come all the way down to here, this is, again, miles away. So I'm not sure how these, while I like this confluence normally, like this did have an annual demand, which was what that alert was for. So obviously annual demand, it can go significantly deeper into it if it wants to. But I guess it concerns me a little bit that the Korea pair hasn't come at least down into this 2-week demand and is so far off what the US dollar pair has done. So I wonder if we're just going to see maybe some extended sideways on the US dollar pair while the Korea pair catches up a bit. Like, it doesn't have to go to exactly the same level, but I'd like at least to see it probably in proper demand there. But anyway, maybe the confluence is just off at the moment with the US dollar stuff that's going on. Maybe until that stops happening, or until we see a retracement on the US dollar, then maybe we're not going to see this, like the confluence come back between the pairs. One thing I didn't actually comment, okay, hold on, let me just finish Ether first. I didn't comment on the Kimchi premium. So again, yeah, similar to the Ether dominance chart, this is, the Ether BTC has now come back down into this 2 months demand down here. I might just take out that zone again to make it easier to see. I mean, it is still just holding this 3 month and monthly from above, but obviously a big drop there, and I did berate myself slightly in the stream yesterday. I saw the on the pump that we got on Ether on Friday, I sort of saw the opportunity here, or the possibility of a double bottom, and did sort of say that this looked like it might go up, but I got a bit too carried away with it, given it still hadn't broken supply. So again, but the Ether BTC can be hard because obviously it can suddenly do these giant moves without any retracement whatsoever. But it's very critical when you're looking for reversals on whatever time frame you're on, like this, for example, that until it breaks the last supply from the last drop, that's not a reversal. Yeah, you can start looking for longs, here and here if you want, but know that they are still high risk longs until it breaks through that zone. So in this case, it's quite clearly rejected that 2-day supply and dropped deeper. But it'd be nice to see if Ether can pick up its game now. January, February is the time it normally does it. This is I was following this pattern for a while, and unfortunately, so while we followed very similar structure to all of this, we're kind of essentially, and similarly here, we made a monthly supply, same as current price action, but what happened here is it tested it and consolidated and then went through it in February, whereas what we've had is this in current price action. So unfortunately, we got the first half of this price action with this broadening wedge and then drop off the bottom. Unfortunately, it hasn't picked up support in the same way as it did back in 2019. Yeah, so anyway, certainly at decent points of turnaround. Nothing to overly panic about on Bitcoin. On Ether, slightly more panicky, or at least, you know, high time frame range. But I'm certainly not bullish on Ether. But then, yeah, obviously, barring short low time frame where we're clearly probably going to get some sort of a retracement. Let's just go to this career chart again. So I've said actually for quite a long time now that so the Kimchi premium is when the BTC Korea pair trades significantly above the BTC US dollar pair. So this chart shows, you know, the times that's happened, and obviously we've only got a small sample size of data. Did have the show the price on this chart as well. So you can see back here in 2018 when we made the top. So what happened is that we make a top, and then the Korea premium kicks in, then Korea pushes higher, or maybe it's the US dollar being stronger, I don't know. Like, actually, I think I did do that comparison. I think it wasn't just that, but it was also Korea pushing higher, but it wasn't consistent that the US dollar has to be strong at the same time. But we make the top on the US dollar pair, then Korea continues to push for a little while we start the retracement, and then we get the bigger drop. And that happened in 2018, exactly the same thing in 2021. You know, we actually made the top in this section before Korea had pushed at all, so similar here, but the BTC pair went slightly higher, but not much, but the premium went up to 10,000. Then finally we saw the top. And even here, and you know, there's the second top that we had in 2021, again, Korea pushed, top happens, Korea pushes a little bit after, less of a push here, but still only 5k in premium, before we get the bigger drop. And then exactly the same thing again in March 2024, we made the top. You know, again, this is just a consolidation top, but again, Korea pushes a bit after the tops happened a couple of times, and then we get a retracement. So obviously what we're seeing now, and what we've even seen here, so I did say, I think I said back in December that this was a risk, and we've pushed again on the Korea premium since then, but we haven't made a new high since then. So again, we are in that very risky area based on what, 1, 2, 3 or 4 if we include that, 4 previous sample size of data, that when we make a top, Korea can then push a little bit afterwards while the actual price is unable to make new highs, and then we get a bigger drop, or at least a consolidation. Just checking I'm not being biased with looking here, for example. You know, we did get a little push there, and then obviously we went up after that. So, but yeah, when we get that significant move up on the premium, and again, somebody did point out yesterday, and it's a fair point, that, you know, back here, this 7,000 premium when the price was at 20,000 was massive. And then here, when, you know, a 12,000 premium, the price is at 60,000 is less significant. And then again, now, you know, again, we've got a 10,000 premium, but the price is now 100,000. So there's only a 10% premium here, whereas here there was a close to 50% premium. So it's less significant now, at least the push, but it's still just a piece of data that I like to be aware of when we do have four prior situations where that exact thing happened. So yeah, anyway, that's BTC and Ether. Longer than I wanted to be on that, so, but we'll see. So Ripple, I finally left my drawing. I've drawn this drawing countless times, that I said that this, you know, what I was looking for here and why I wouldn't be looking to long in this section. So it has taken a wick through that triangle now. So again, demand there, I think it was a 2-week demand. It's run straight through, but obviously it's bounced pretty hard. So now I want to go back and have a look. So like I said, this is a very common pattern on Ripple. Oh, hello, sorry, people are talking to me. This is such an unusual situation. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna look at alts, gonna go through alts now. I'm just gonna run through the majors, and then Yeah, then I'll look at some of the other alts because I had 170 alerts come through. Osmandius, not bullish on Ether. It took out many major lows with great. It depends how you define bullish. So Ether, yes, it's taken out many major lows. Like I can be bullish, but I mean, what do you define as bullish? Obviously, I'm bullish, yes, potentially for a retracement, fill the gap, etc., etc. Although it's halfway up now, so I wouldn't really say I'd want to enter here. Am I bullish on this for it, going to 10k? Like, no, not right now, based on everything I just said. I'm not sure if you were watching the earlier part of the stream, but yeah, possible double top, following this same fractal. So, I can't be bullish at resistance. It's that simple. It is, yes, we've come back into this monthly demand, so that's good. So I'm bullish from that perspective, and it's all probabilities. So, but I'm not bullish, right? And I'd be more bullish on this if I start to see ETFs buying significantly. Let's have a look at that, because I don't think I haven't seen that as yet. There would have been more buying than there was when it first got released. So we're getting some BlackRock buying on this now, but still some selling on Grayscale, which is balancing it out. But yeah, I just need to see more on Ether, I think, before I'm going to be bullish. If we do get, like say we've now come up, if this does now consolidate here and continues to hold this monthly demand, and we get, a test of this weekly supply, and it comes back down and it holds the zone, then great, then maybe we can start looking at that. But I just feel like that's more of an extended time period, and maybe I'm wrong. But I don't tend to trade, I don't tend to make those judgments or guesses on the very, very high time frames like some other people do, because I think, A, it's going to take too long to play out. If I'm wrong, and if this suddenly throws now a giant move straight up through here, then I'm quite happy to buy a retest. But as it stands, we've made a double top locally, double top on the macro. In its favour, I guess, that we've got that ETH BTC pair as, again, come back down into demand. But again, we need to see, just because it's hit demand doesn't mean it's going to go anywhere. And so far, it's been hitting a lot of demand and going nowhere whatsoever. So, and again, this is almost like what I was just about to say on Ripple, that this is very much a distribution pattern. Again, it's been unable to make a higher high, and it's just come down in this drift of death for ages. If this starts making a high time frame uptrend, then great. But at the moment, it's not. And I'm not going to just blindly go, yes, I'm bullish because it's hit support. It means I won't short, for sure. But I'm not going to long just based on that. Like, I'll long if I start to see, some structure in here that's worth longing. But look here, we've got none. We've had none for, what's that? 2 years? 3 years? So I guess we'll see. But no, at the moment I'm not bullish on Ether, beyond the likelihood, obviously, of it bouncing because it's dropped quite a lot. But, if it gets back through supply, then we can be bullish again. So back to Ripple, yeah, so I was looking at this on Ripple for it to come back through the triangle. It has swing failed the lows here. It hasn't come down in any further as yet, but I need to go back on this and have a look at kind of what these is. This normally a reversal? I've said this is a very common pattern, but I haven't really necessarily looked to see if this is actually a reversal pattern or whether it is likely to pick up support now and then continue. And the other thing I want to do, like did start looking at the BTC pairs, but I need to again now just see what they did as of yesterday, because obviously they're going to be looking fairly ugly as well. Oh yes, actually I've forgotten about this. I did have an alert here, so this is more promising, I guess. I did have an alert here for this hitting annual demand, so that's kind of interesting on the BTC pair. Could that give another move up to there? Yes, if that just means Ripple is stronger than BTC, so it's possible that that we get that. And the US dollar pairs just go sideways, but with just Ripple being a bit stronger than BTC. I don't know. I guess we'll see. Again, this is not something I'm going to buy right now. If you start to see it making, let me look at the lower time frames. If it starts to make some sort of a demand, then great. Probably wouldn't look to short here as yet. Maybe if it takes out that trend line. But yeah, I need to see a bit more on this. So quickly on the others, because like I say, I haven't done the full analysis yet. So I had that more aggressive entry that was risky, but on for a possible long on Litecoin on 2-day demand in here. Again, it's one that didn't make a higher high. It's a demand that didn't make a higher high, so it's not surprising it's actually run through it. It's bounced pretty hard off that 2-month level down there. Unfortunately, my second alert was a little bit lower. I was going to go back through and look at all of these yesterday. No worries on Ether. Yeah, I was going to go back and look at all these yesterday and look at where my long entries were, but I didn't get a chance to before we had the drop. So yeah, like I say, this was a reasonably low probability zone due to the fact we're coming off 3-month supply. So I need to look at this a little bit more. Again, if we get a drop further, runs the same risk as what we're going to see shortly on BCH and what we had on Ether, in that it could take out this whole trend line. So I'll probably be more inclined to look for shorts on this, so I guess we'll see what I get to. So yeah, I will do like the full analysis in the next couple of days on all of these and then actually figure out where I think they're going. BCH has basically done exactly what Ripple did, and so I had the entry there, and I disclaimed this a number of times when I've done analysis in the group on exactly the same scenario as Ether. We've got a demand here, it failed to make a higher high, could have given a bounce. And gave a very brief bounce, but again, timing was off on this, so it's come down back deeper into this zone. So still a 6-month zone, so there's no reason to be like overall bearish on BCH as yet. But as I said, there was a risk of taking out those trend line stops and then also these. So again, I want to see a little bit more on this. I don't know if I had an alert for that monthly that hasn't gone, or whether I hadn't put it in yet. But it does have a monthly zone a little bit below that wick. But like I say, we've got the risk of these trend line stops being taken on BCH. EOS I was slightly more conservative on, but I think I had the alert just for this 3-day demand, so it's obviously gone a bit deeper into that. And on all of these, I've said we've had exactly the same kind of issue. This has less of an issue with the trend line stops, although it does have a possible double bottom that could get targeted. But again, hit into the monthly demand. I think, yeah, I've said a few times we've got 3-week demand, monthly demand, 2-week demand, you know, and that these were never that clear on where they might bounce, and there's just more of a general area. So this one I had a slightly more, not as aggressive as up here, I was wary of that one, slightly more aggressive alert on that, and then it could just bounce anywhere in that zone. But again, it's remembering similarly on this, overarchingly, we are in a downtrend. This is 3-month supply. It has hit it a few times. So it's hit that zone a few times. It also closed below this larger 3-month zone. So while it might pick up support on a monthly here, my bias is still down. But what we are hoping for, at least, you know, is, so if you're taking a long here, you're hoping either that you are at the point of it's going to reverse, and maybe you will just get an up move. You know, it has, I think it's got a previous wick from here from another chart. So it is possible that that's going to happen. Or at a minimum, maybe you'll get a bounce that's going to take you back to supply, and then it's going to continue the larger downtrend. And so on these, again, always trade both directions. That's a weak demand, but you can look for a bounce. It's given one, and then you're looking for lower time frames. Do I think Solana's a good buy here? I'm going to get to that shortly. Let me just look at these old majors, and then I'll get onto the new majors. So that's those, the old majors, then the new majors. Solana's on the next page, you have to wait a couple of minutes. BNB, we came down, we've got an annual level here, so BNB is kind of much more of interest to me, but I want to look at the BTC pair, so you can see that's tapped into the annual level, and I had an alert that went there. Obviously the bigger drop, the more aggressive alert, it went through that, but it's still in the zone. So again, remember, bear in mind that I alert the zone, the cross is at the top of the zone and where the alert's going, or just below where the alert's going, but that doesn't mean, so this, arguably this green cross for the alert for the 3-month zone hasn't failed, it's just gone deeper inside. But yeah, so it got a tiny bounce off the top there and then came much deeper. It had a really strong bounce off there, so that's pretty nice. Again, the real issue here is that we've got the swing fair of all-time high. But let's hope this annual level can give us a push and pick it up from here. But again, the annual same comment as with the 3 month, you know, it can go all the way down to the bottom of here and still retain this annual uptrend that we've got. It's a weak annual demand because of the swing fails of the highs. But a decent bounce off that for starting for the lower time frames anyway. Link, I think, yeah, again, so I had the more aggressive entry, I think similar to the Litecoin chart, just in case we were going to get another push in here up to there. So that one obviously failed, and then it set off the next alert down here, but hasn't quite tapped. I think there's 6 months demand in there, hasn't quite tapped that, so I guess I'll reset that alert more than likely and hope we get another test. Link I like a bit more in the bigger picture, but again it's still in this macro supply. So are we going to get, you know, is this a new run where we're going to get that, or is this just a bearish retest where we're getting, you know, either the, as I always draw, the triangle, getting the ABC wave, or we're getting the zigzag, which then takes out this low, which would be nice because it missed my entry down there from a long time ago. But again, that's just bigger picture stuff. I'm just looking at scalps and trades on the short time frames, as you know. But would like to see this retest if it's going to come back down again. But again, a fairly big wick, so I need to see the closes on some of these as well. ADA. Again, come back down into, so I had a more aggressive alert on this 3-day that I put yesterday, and obviously shouldn't have done, but it wasn't. When the price goes sideways slowly for so long, I tend to then get surprised when it does the bigger drop, and that's part of the issue with looking at the lower time frames for those entries. So if I stuck with the higher time frames, I'd end up probably a lot more across the bigger moves. But then also I'm a trader, so the bigger moves are great if you're in them in the right direction, and if you're not, then you just wait it out for the next scalp entry. So this has come back down to 6 month demand, 61 fib. You know, it was difficult because this had obviously this big zone, and it's swing failed the lows there. Again, a decent sized bounce, so that's nice, but need to see follow up PA. Don't be FOMOing in. Need to see if this is gonna, so it actually might have reclaimed this 3-day level there. But you know, we need to see a lot more on this. You know, are they just going to go straight back up and reject here? Or are they going to give us some consolidation here where we can actually look for decent long entries? But ADA's not horrendous, being on the 6 month demand. Pole was one of the uglier ones, and I kind of expected this for a while because we rejected 6 month supply at the high here, and then also a yearly level, well, that's potentially a new yearly level. So I've said before, I've kind of drawn in the previous Matic chart here. The screen is switching itself off. I've drawn in the previous Matic chart here, so yeah, there is an old weekly level down here, so I did have an alert on that, and it appears to have bounced just above that. But again, so it might pick up from here, but I need to look at this a little bit more. We're kind of really looking on something like this, we're really looking at where the weekly is going to close, because if the weekly starts closing, if the weekly can close strong, then we might get, that might be the low, but if the weekly closes down here, then it's probably going to be, this is multiple tests on this zone now. I need to go and look at the other chart. I think I actually copied and pasted it in here. Let me have a check. Thought I put it in here. Yes. Okay, so this is the with all the history on the Matic chart. So you can see it. This had that wick down into that weekly zone. So that's now where we're at now. So that's why I put an entry there on the possibility that the pole chart would come and test that same level as that weekly zone. So yeah, I guess we'll see. So this is, yeah, it's possible it's still holding the consolidation, but if it gets a close under this orange line on the weekly, it's probably not going to be good. So that's something to keep an eye on. I need to check where that orange line actually is on the other chart. Probably this same level that I had drawn here, the 0.3. But I need to double check that. But yeah, it has had a bounce there for now. Right, then on to the last majors. Sol, since I've had it on request. Another similar structure to Ether and Litecoin, I guess, and Link, slightly different, but did make a 3-week demand and then a weekly demand. So I had an alert for the top of the weekly, which got a tiny bounce and then came down deeper to this daily. So on Sol, again, from the bullish side, we did have this annual demand here. So that was the long entries we were looking at a few weeks ago, or a couple of weeks ago. But that has taken out the high. So essentially this annual has played out. Like while we expect and would hope for a nice big move off an annual level, there's no, like, really that its mission in life, its goal is just to take out the previous annual high. So it's kind of, again, and not ideal that it swing failed that high, and then that's why I was sort of saying look for shorts, and then look for shorts on the retest here once we got the second swing fail. However, again, so we've got that yearly level, we've also got, what's this, a monthly demand there and a monthly demand below. So again, I'll be just going to hold it's held support here. Let me see what your question. Do I think it's a good buy here? Not the cleanest structure break in the last pump. No. So no, it had that nice pump, but didn't break structure. Like that's just a swing fail of the high. So this is not a high probability long area. It's also, like everything else, has these trend line stops. So there's a few risks on that it's going to come back lower. And similar to the other thing I've commented on this before is similar to Ripple, it's got this potential triangle thing going on. So that's not just a Ripple thing, it's actually a fairly common crypto thing as well. So this is not strong demand in here. It's a little bit better than some of the other ones because obviously it's kind of stayed up here a while and has held support, but yeah. I mean, this is for me, like you're asking, so I would scalp up here potentially, but like if something's this high, I just don't want to long it, because for me it's just the risk reward isn't there. It's too high risk that it is, it is over, or even if it's just going to go sideways. So Link, what we saw when Link broke out, for example, like the whole rest of the market then continued going up, and then Link just stayed at the highs for ages, messing around, not going any higher, and people kept trying to long it thinking it was going to go higher, but actually the rest of the market was moving and catching up. So no, I don't necessarily think this is the wise place to be looking for longs on this. I don't think they're particularly high probability, and there's, like I say, risks. While we've got monthly, yearly demand, what's your risk to reward on this? I mean, do you think this is going to go, there's people who'll make these insane projections saying this is going to, $5,000, and, maybe it is like the new ether, maybe you can hold this and then you can hold it for a decade and it's going to go to, $1,000 or whatever, or in a year or two, but are you a trader or an investor? So the answer to that question is kind of like really what you should do. If you have some position from down here and you want to add some in up here in the hope that it's going to consolidate and break out, then that's fine. But as a trader, I don't think this is a particularly good trade to be taking. Okay, good to know you have a similar opinion. But yeah, so I just think there's plenty of other things that would be better to long. I did also actually, to be honest, since we're here, I did look at the BTC pair on this, and I think I also didn't like that much. I think for most of these, I didn't really like the BTC pairs, except Litecoin. I remember that one I was more open to. Yeah, so obviously what we see on the US dollar